This will be my first of a series of personal life experiences that I've had in years past. So if you remember, you get to watch this. And here goes my first story. Story number 1. We're going to talk about the worst time of my life. Couple times, but there's one that's the worst of the worst, which is life and death. And life and death situations are probably your worst time you'll ever have to deal with. And I decided the first one is going to be the very, very worst one, which is when I got cancer. Now, I have to CYA. So the CYA is this is just my life's experience dealing with cancer. It's not a recommendation to anybody of what you should do, whether or not it's going to help you or not. I could not tell you. I'm not a doctor. There'll be a disclaimer in the description as well. This is just what's happened to me back in 2010. Now, that's 15 years ago, and I'm 69 now. So what was I, 54? At the age of 54, I had been diagnosed after seeing a doctor, my regular doctor. Well, let's go back. First off, I had a deep under the belly, below the gut pain, and it was bothering me a lot. I had gone through a lot of depression by this time, which will be a different series, which will be about losing my wife and losing my business, which are also pretty upsetting. But this will be the first one because it was actually the worst because it has to deal with cancer, as I said. My story, what I did, what happened to me only. My story is allowed to be told on YouTube, as long as I let you know that I'm not recommending you to take any action as I did, not to follow what I did, nor is this a medical direction for you. If you're taking chemo, continue with chemo. If whatever you're doing, I know there's lots of different things on YouTube and TikTok to suggest other products that might deal with cancer. I am not going to tout any of those. You'll have to do your own experimentation and your own trials and follow your doctor's advice in most cases, and take the medication and always get a second opinion, okay? So I had bad pain, gut feeling. I literally had trouble crawling out of bed. It was hurting so bad in the mornings. And so I went to my regular doctor, and she referred me to a doctor that had to do with internalists. I believe it's called an oncologist. And the oncologist did tests, took blood, urine, had me come back, did x-rays, and then referred me to another oncologist, which he never gave me any reason for, but they did further testing. And it's been a while. I mean, it's been 15 years, but this is, I think they did more than x-rays. I don't remember, but it might have been a CAT scan involved. I can't remember if the CAT scan was during when I had cancer, which they diagnosed, or whether it was during the time that I had a vehicle accident and I died at the scene. Another story for maybe part 2. So, but I remember them looking over all these x-rays and everything else, and they said they called me in and they said, you have pancreatic cancer. So I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It was stage 2+. And they said, we can try and operate. We could try chemo at the same time. We could also do radiation, things like that, which is a form of chemo, but a little different. And I had to go home and think about it. And both doctors, because I saw both of them, one after the other, pretty much, like within the same week, both said that it's most likely, due to the type of cancer it is, it's unoperable. And the only thing they could do is possibly postpone the inevitable. So they both diagnosed it as a terminal illness. And I need to do something right away because at stage 3, there's nothing they could do. And I didn't really want to deal with this. Now, I had already been divorced, and I'd already lost my business and a lot of money, bad management, other things. So there was a lot of depression. And I kind of believe now that depression, that kind of pressure and depression mentally affects you physically. And I'm sure you could agree. I mean, I was not in a good place. I literally, at that point, did try to take my life by overdosing, but all I did was had a bad 3 or 4 days thinking there were spiders crawling all over me. There were spiders everywhere. I believe I took a lot of sleeping pills, just a ton of sleeping pills, and it was basically, it was what do they call that when you think about things but it's not really happening. Anyway, you'll know what it is. But I was dreaming all these things. There was spiders in my bed, spiders on me, but I didn't have any pain, and I slept a lot. It was literally a 3 or 4 day binge, and it's not a good time in your life when you do something like that. I did get very paranoid. I remember having a gun loaded in my bed, and a friend coming over and trying to take my gun away. Because she called another friend. She said she saw a gun, and the other friend came over, and I guess I was sweating. I don't remember sweating, but they said I was sweating. I was overheated, and they took the gun away, and they put me into a shower, and I had been in that bed for like 3 or 4 days. So they put me in a shower and tried to clear my mind and watched over me for at least 24 to 48 hours. It was a tough time dealing with it. And the pain, when I finally came clear again, and I wasn't hallucinating, that's the word, I was hallucinating. It was a situation where I just didn't want to live, to be honest. I didn't want to go through the pain of chemo. I've seen people, they lose their hair, they're throwing up, they're not in a good way, they take it close to death. And the oncologist, the second one, which was more honest than the first one, more open, said to me, I don't think it'll work, but it may prolong your life by a few months. They both had given me less than 6 months to live. Okay? And they both said it's pretty much terminal. But you might be able to make it to 6 to 8 months, but you will be sick. And I guess that's from getting chemotherapy. So I just started selling things off. Now, I was living in a rented house at the time, 2-story, very nice house in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I had bought all the furniture, expensive furniture. I had closed everything down, but I ended up with a lot of money. So I bought glass chandeliers, crystal chandeliers, and expensive beds from a well-known retailer in town, and I had expensive slot machines, antique slot machines from the 50s, maybe 30s to 50s. One-arm band, what they call it, one-arm bandits, but the antique ones with stands. I had big screen TVs, stereos, couches, beds, you name it. I had a whole house full of furniture. This was a big house. The master bedroom was huge, and then I had 3 more bedrooms upstairs, and then another bedroom downstairs with a very large living room, a kitchen, and a separate dining room. It was very, and it had a pool. So it also had a very big pool in the backyard, and came with a pool man, and a landscaper. I don't remember exactly how much I was paying for it, but it was a little bit high, and this would be in the, let's see, 15 years ago. I think it was like $2,500, $2,700 a month. Pretty expensive back then for that time. Anyway, so I decided just to sell everything off and give the money to my sons. However, one son was doing very well in Colorado. He was contract labor on Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, and he really didn't want anything. Okay, I had shipped him a lot of expensive furniture for my previous house, and he really just. I paid for the shipping. I loaded it up. I paid a guy to haul it out to him, but he ended up really saying to me, "Dad, I really don't need all this furniture." He had a big house he had moved into, but my other son was on SSI at the time. He was not allowed to have any money in his account. So what I had done is I had made a trust previously. I had a trust, and I was funding it previously for my other son, my younger son, who was autistic and on SSI. And I put the money in the trust, and it was controlled by the lawyer. And basically, he would receive money, not lump sum. He would receive money every year over a period of so many years. I don't remember. I think it was he would get it over a period of 5 or 10 years with a bonus every fifth. And every fifth year, he'd get a larger amount. But he was not allowed to have money in his name due to the state and federal laws. Well, SSI, you're only allowed to have $2,000. I don't know what it is today, but back then it was $2,000 in anything of value. So I put it in a trust, and it was not in his name. He was just a beneficiary. We did not tell anybody about it. Now, I'm selling everything off in my house, and I don't really care about how much money I get for it. If I get 50 cents on the dollar, that's fine. If I get less, it's fine. I didn't care. And I had expensive imported Chinese flower pots with Chinese flowers or trees in it with blossoms. They were like enamel with let's see, they had shell, pretty shell work done on the outside. With different types of shell, different types of color, hand painted, and an inlaid table. I did my living room in inlaid table. It was like a rosewood with inlay shells and abalone shell and everything. It was very expensive. And a guy came over, and he wanted to know, how come you're selling everything so cheap? And I said, oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I don't need it anymore. I'm leaving. So he bought quite a bit. He spent quite a bit of money. I'm going to say upwards of $10,000, but he bought $40,000, $50,000 worth of furniture for $10,000. And he said, I'll be back tomorrow, because he says there's a few more smaller things I want to get. Now, he bought big things. He bought the tables, the inlaid tables from China, and chairs and wooden chairs, all in this wood. It's kind of a rosewood. And I had teak wood tables. He bought most of the Chinese things, and then he wanted the chandelier. And I believe I paid $2,500 for this one black glass chandelier with hanging chandelier. And I said, just give me $1,000 for it. And so he came back the next day, and he says, how will you take $800? And I said, yeah, I'll take $800. I didn't really care. Oh, sorry, I got to shut my phone off. My phone is now setting up an alarm to wake me up. It's pretty early in the morning. It's 7:30 now. Sorry about that, guys. Dismiss. All right. So, he says, when he came back the next day, he says, I have to know what is the problem? Why are you selling everything so cheap? And I told him, I have cancer. I'm given less than 6 months to live, and I'm in pain, and I'm on pain medicine. And he looked at me and he said, okay, I'll be right back. And he left for about an hour. So he lived in Las Vegas too, but the other side of town, area called Summerlin, which is a higher end area in Las Vegas. Now, he came back with a little, like a one-page flyer and a CD. It wasn't really... I guess it was a DVD, but it wasn't really had too much in there other than the name and of the hospital in Mexico, and the doctor talking. It wasn't really it was a video, but I played it anyway. So he had a DVD, and I put it in and I played it because I had even sold him the TV and everything. But he was planning to have a truck come and pick it up, so I played it, and it was about a hospital in Mexico that treats cancer. And the doctor, and I'm not going to remember his name, I apologize, but it's been a long time. And he's since passed away. And the clinic that I went to since is closed up. Because when he passed away, then other clinics took over. But he was in Mexico City, and he had said that he had a 97% rate of helping people survive. And that it wasn't a treatment center, it was a curing center where he cured cancer. Again, this is just for me. This is only what I did. This is what happened to me. This is my story. Now, I contacted him, and he asked me to send him all the paperwork I had, and I sent everything, the x-rays, and I had also had the CAT scan on a disc, and I sent that to him and all the paperwork from the two doctors. And about a week later, maybe 10 days, he called me. He says, I see what you have. He says, we might be able to save you if you're willing to come down here. And I said, well, what is the cost? Well, that was the whole point. There is no cost. They worked on donations. It was fee-free. And in the video, it showed they had quite a few people there. I would say over 50 people. And they had equipment, all kinds of equipment. And he says, you're going to have to come here. We can't treat you where you are, obviously. And I'm going like, well, how do you treat? Is this a medicine? Is this a pill? And he said, well, one thing is he created something that was pretty much green. It was ugly, but you drink that every day. And he says it will put you through showing you what to eat, what not to eat. We have to take you change your food and your diet, and also they said we need to oxygenate you because oxygen will. And now this is what he's telling me: oxygen will kill cancer cells. Well, I didn't have a whole lot to lose. I had money. Okay, I didn't put it in the trust yet. It was still in the bank. I had money, and I probably had about $20,000 at this point from selling everything off. I had lost my business. I lost my wife. I'd lost everything, and I didn't have a lot to lose. And I did have a passport already, so I flew to Mexico. Now, and I had to wait. Remember, I had to wait because they didn't have enough beds yet, so I had to wait an extra few weeks. Now, meanwhile, I'm on pain meds, okay? Pretty strong hydrocodone pain meds. I had started off on 5 milligrams, they had upped me all the way up to 15 milligrams. And that was 4 times a day. So I took all the meds I could with me and put them in my pocket in a plastic container. I didn't want to get them confiscated or anything, and I did go to Mexico, and I did go into this facility to help me. Now, in the facility, it was very strange because everybody had all different types of cancer. There was men and women. They separated the men from the women, of course. At this facility, I spent several weeks, about 6 weeks there, where they blended food and mostly natural, fresh fruits and vegetables. Green vegetables. We're not supposed to have anything that was like carbs. So no sugar and no potatoes, no tomatoes, no pineapples, no fruit that had high sugar content, and nothing that was acidic. So tomatoes were taboo, and let's say zucchini was not, because it was you had to stay away from root vegetables. Carrots was a high sugar, and anything like squash. You got to stay away from squash. I said zucchini, but I meant squash. Sorry. No squash. No. But there were berries. You could have berries. Berries were okay, and you make everything in a blender and you drink that. In the same time, you add alkali. So you only drink alkali water. It was a pH of 8. However, you'd add a few more drops to make it a little higher pH, and you would test it with pH paper and try to get it to about 8.5 to 9. But the water started off at pH 8, and it was filtered distilled water. So you're only able to drink water, and the food was a blender for the first week to 10 days. There were certain combinations you couldn't eat, and there were certain things you'd never eat again, like steak and potatoes. And at the same time, I had to go into a oxygen hyperchamber 3 times a day, where you basically are on a gurney and they slide you into this tube, and it's clear, and they increase the oxygen content within this, and you stay in there for 15, 20 minutes. I think in the beginning it was about 30, and at the end it was around 15 or 20 minutes. And they try to oxygenate your blood by forcing it through your pores. And you do this 3 times a day, and then later on, just a couple times a day, and then eventually once a day. In the beginning, it was a lot more stricter. No soda pops, no juices. Orange juice is taboo. It's all full of sugar, and oranges are not really good. Interesting enough, you would think lemons are acidic, but lemons are okay. No chemicals, so no sweeteners, artificial sweeteners. I still had to take my medicine. I had high blood pressure. They still wanted me to take the medicine, but I had to monitor it and check it because slowly it would go to normal. I called it it was premature diabetic, but I did have to watch that anyway beforehand. But and I took a pill for it. I never took shots. But after a while, I didn't have to take the pill anymore. After a few weeks, didn't need a pill. It was just naturally dropped because I had nothing that would turn to sugar. And you're going to have to look up on a chart. They have charts. We had to learn about fruits and vegetables and which ones would turn to sugar and which ones were not. And some were better than others. Certain things like beets. Beets are very good for you. And but you got to watch it because if you take certain foods and you fry it, even if it's in butter, it caramelizes and that turns it to a sugar. So you have to be careful. Pretty much wasn't allowed carrots anyway. I like carrots, but you weren't allowed carrots. Beets were very good. Anything leafy green, obviously, was good for you. We only used dressing that was like oil vinegar dressing, Italian dressings, not too spicy in the beginning. And it had to be, we made it fresh. So balsamic vinegar and olive oil. And didn't use any other oils, just olive oil. Had to be cold pressed virgin olive oil. At the same time, we added liquid, we added drops to our drinks. So when we drank the alkali water, we added hydrogen peroxide to the water. And hydrogen peroxide has an extra oxygen molecule. I'm not positive. I haven't looked at it, but I think it's H2O3 or H2O4. So it might be H2O3. And basically you would add a few drops, and it had to be not the hydrogen peroxide that you buy in the market in a brown bottle that's 3%. They had concentrated hydrogen peroxide, and it was 31%, 32%, and you had to cut it with distilled water, and it was food grade, so it was allowed for consumption. Where the one you buy at the store has additives in it to stabilize it. This had no additives to stabilize, so. We cut it down to about a 6% solution. Okay, we'd cut it 5 times, literally, and then we put it in a dropper and we would add drops, and it tasted terrible. But he said normally we'd do 2 or 3 or 4 drops per day, and then you eventually do 20 drops a day. But they had me go right straight to 10. Started at 10. And you could taste it, and it wouldn't taste very good when it's in water. But that was the procedure. and I followed it. I still take hydrogen peroxide today. I do 10 drops per liter, which is close to a quart, like your soda bottles that you have 1 liter soda bottles. I do 10 drops in distilled water, and I still add alkali tablets. We cannot get alkali water here. I know in the States you can get alkali water, but not here. So I buy alkali additives that dissolves, and it comes either in liquid or tablet form. All this can be bought on Amazon, including the food-grade hydrogen peroxide. It's all purchased. You can all purchase it on Amazon, and keep it in your refrigerator, and you could dilute it further if you want. It used to be you could buy 31 or 32% from Amazon. Then they cut it back to half, about 16%. Now it's down to about 6%. So you could buy it from Amazon. They didn't change the price. They just thinned it out pretty much. It's not terribly expensive, but you'll have to look it up to see in your state how much Amazon charges. If we order Amazon from here, they usually have a different price than if you order it in the U.S. because they offer free shipping, but they end up charging you more for the product. So that's what I did, a regimen of that for about 6 weeks. Oxygen, hyperchamber, oxygen by adding hydrogen peroxide, food grade drops in water. At first, there was nothing else you're allowed to drink but water. Later on, coffee, but first it was just water with alkali water with hydrogen peroxide and food. Now the food was not very interesting, but the pain went away. By the time I left there, the pain had subsided. Okay, and they had taken X-rays, and they showed me on the X-rays, but I don't know what I'm looking at. But they showed me how things looked better. For me, it was just gray and light spots. I didn't really see the difference. Now, I did go back home after 6 weeks. I didn't have much left in my house other than a bed and a refrigerator, but it wasn't my house anyway. It was rented. I had contacted the guy, Mike, and told him thank you very much. And I had also donated a large amount of money to the hospital in Mexico when I got back because I felt like they saved my life. And within about 3 months, I was back to normal. And I had to pretty much start from the ground up because I had very little money left to run a business. I didn't have a shop anymore. I had to move to a smaller. I couldn't afford the rent there, so I had to move to a smaller condo. And luckily, I had a car, and I just started from scratch again, doing what I did, which was buying gold and silver, but on a smaller scale with jewelers. And I built that back up over a period of about 2 years. Now, I did go back to my doctor, my general doctor. I'll just say her first name was Amy. It was a female doctor. She was Chinese. Yeah. And when I went there after about 4 or 5 months being home. And I just wanted to get a general checkup and get my prescriptions, okay, because I was still checking my blood pressure and things like that, and I had run out of all the pills I had. And when I went there and I filled out the forms, and then she says to me, she says, it has been a long time. And I said, yeah. She says, how are you feeling? I said, I feel fine. And she says, well, didn't I refer you to an oncologist? You were having guts pains. And I says, yes, you did. She says, well, I heard that you had cancer. And I said, yes, I did. She says, well, you look fine. What did you do? And I told her, I went to Mexico. And she looked at me, and I said, and I got cured. And she goes, I cannot treat you. I go, what do you mean? I says, well, you just told me you had cancer and you got cured in Mexico. And the American Medical Association does not allow me to treat someone unless you can show that you've been through a U.S. Process, whether it be chemo, operation, radiation, whatever it is. She says, I cannot treat you. She says, you're going to have to find another doctor now. And I said, are you serious? She says, yeah. She says, that's the rule. She says, I could lose my license if I treat you. I go, really? And I says, well, what if I just told you start over and just told you I didn't? And she says, well, I didn't have cancer. She says, well, it's already written up on your charts that you had cancer, and I referred you. And the diagnosis was sent back, and it's in your file. So she says, you're going to have to go to another doctor. And she says, do not mention to them that you had cancer, that you were treated, and that you were cured. She says, don't do that. Now, and it was a shame because I really liked that doctor. I had her for 3 or 4 years, but that's what had it happened. And interesting enough, later in years, because this happened back in 2000, like I said, 2010, 2011. And later years, I did have a major accident, which will be story number 2. But that would be in 2016. I died at the scene in a traffic accident, and we'll talk about that in my next story series, members only. And the doctor that was treating me for that looked at the 4 pages I'd filled out, and he came into the room. And I'm just going to jump ahead. And that doctor, during my recovery, he says, you had cancer. And I said, yes, I did. He says, what did you do? And I named the name I had put it in there. I says, well, I put the name of the doctor I went to in Mexico and the clinic. He says, yes, I know them. He says, and? I said, well, he cured me. He says, well, I cannot treat you if you put this down here. I'm not legally allowed. And that triggered my memory from back in 2010 from my Dr. Amy. And I says, I see. He says, I'm going to take out page number 3. We're going to replace it. I'm going to bring it back in here with the clipboard. And when it asks you about cancer, you state that you've never had it. He says, then I could treat you. And he says, I'm going to shred page 3. And he said, by the way, I know this clinic. I know it works. However, I sent my aunt there, and she also went through and had positive results. But it says you're going to have to replace page 3. And I said, okay. And he treated me. So I just want to let you know, for me, that's my experience. I'm not recommending anything to anybody else. But there is many ways to deal with illnesses. This was my way, and it worked for me. And I'll put up some photos of the items I take. I might attach them here at the end, so you could find them on Amazon. And I appreciate you sticking with me, and I'm glad I'm here. Now it's been, I had 6 months to live, and now it's been 15 years later, nearly 15 years later. Thank you very much, and thanks for being a member. I really appreciate it. I'll have story number 2 out in a few days, which will be the day I died 3 times. Well, within 3 days, I died 3 times. Thank you very much, and I'm going to videotape at the end the product I have. I'll take some snapshots and add it or videotape it. Hold on for the part where it shows the items I use. I don't have them with me here. I'll have to go get them. Well, guess what? I'm back. I decided to go ahead and video to show you what I use. This is the food grade hydrogen peroxide I use. Let me get it up close so you can see it. Solution, 16 fluid ounces. Sorry, it's like reverse. And you can get this from Amazon with 6% solution. It's still available for about $18. All right. What you could do is typically you're going to use a little bottle like this, which has a dripper or a dropper on it. This I can get from Lazada here out of China. It's 35%. But basically what I did was I made up, from my 35%, I made up another bottle that runs about 6%. Now, what I forgot to mention in the video is also on YouTube. You could buy bottle droppers, with where you pinch it, you put a few drops in your liquids. But they have what's called the 1 Minute Cure. The 1 Minute Cure is a book that discusses using hydrogen peroxide to cure. Now, again, this is just what I've read, what I've bought. It is not a recommendation in any way, but I bought the book, I read it, and and it's very good information. The other thing that I do, and this is just me, is I buy. If I get it, oh, there we are. So this is pH Balance. It's alkali. I think you can buy a package of 3 for under $20 on Amazon, and they last a long time. You just put a few drops in your water and alkalize your water, and that's for alkali. You could add that to coffee. But again, I now drink sodas, but only clear sodas. I was if you're going to be drinking soda, it was really bad for you. Another item I use and I take now recently is I'm going to hold this up close. There we are. This brand, also on Amazon, which is methylene blue. Now, this is a 1% solution. This product is very strong. It's a new item. I suggest that you get some books on it, which I did, or at least watch some other YouTube information on it. I use a half of the dropper like every 2 days. I don't do as much as they recommend, but it's basically to build up your immune system, and it builds up your mitochondria, which is helping you when you get older to ward off illnesses and things like that. There's many things, but that's what I do. That's my regimen now. I drink water with food-grade hydrogen peroxide in it or coffee, and I alkali my water. I hope that helps you out. Again, this was what I use just for me. I'm not recommending it to anybody. I'm not a doctor. My experience, which I shared with you only, and that's my CYA. You guys take care. Long life. Enjoy.